This is Business Women Australia podcast, featuring industry leaders who bring their wealth of expertise from diverse areas to help you build a successful business. Now, onto the show. And welcome to another episode of Business Women Australia podcast, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. Joining me on today's show is Meriel Steadman. When Muriel was in high school, she wanted to be an author. She wanted to teach in France, marry a Frenchman, and have bilingual children. Well, life didn't quite turn out that way. And Muriel has been practicing law for over 20 years now in the UK, in Australia, as well as the Caribbean. And she helps clients at the contract drafting stage so that they can avoid future disputes. Now, if a dispute does arise, and obviously where she's not engaged to advise on the contract, she advises on how to resolve the dispute, including by litigation, arbitration, mediation, and negotiation. Now, her clients operate in energy and resources, life sciences, as well as healthcare industries. Now, Muriel has 9-year-old identical twin daughters as well. Now, on today's show, she's going to share things about leadership, the law, and litigation. She's going to talk about how senior females in the law, how you can not just survive, but how you can thrive, as well as tips for businesses on how you can even avoid getting to that litigation stage, and so much more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, Anne-Marie.
When I was reading through and now, of course, shared the introduction with our audience, I love how, you wanted to be an author, you wanted to teach in France, you wanted to marry a Frenchman and have bilingual children. And of course, life didn't turn out that way. You're now a practice lawyer and have been doing so for 20 years. What was it that led you down the path to law?
It's an interesting one, Anne-Marie. So I actually had a very good friend at school who wanted to be a lawyer. And I used to just say, oh, law's boring. But I didn't actually know anything about it. And my form tutor one day said to me, I actually think you would be very well suited to law. And I think that's probably because he found me quite argumentative. I would like to get my way, and I, was very happy to put my point forward. So it was really after he'd suggested it a few times to me that I thought, well, maybe there is something in it. And so I did my research, and I found that actually going into law and being a lawyer, it encompassed so many of the things that I really enjoyed. So, wanting to be an author, we write letters every single day. We write submissions for the court. We write emails. We have to communicate, and we have to get our message across, and we have to persuade. And so those aspects of what I really enjoyed about writing, I could bring into my career as a lawyer. And I really like history as well. And I obviously enjoy languages. And the history part is very much when you're looking at the different cases over the years and how case law has changed, how that has impacted on an industry. And then in terms of being able to actually put that into practice and actually help people, being the one who can come up with ideas and resolve problems. I've always been the sort of person who, faced with a situation or a friend's issues, I'm always the one offering advice. I know nowadays you're supposed to listen, not offer advice when it comes to personal things, but I will always draw upon my experience, other people's experience, and really try and help people through whatever problem they're facing and get to a practical solution as quickly as possible. So all of the aspects really feed into life as a lawyer.
Yeah, what a wonderful story. And how often it's people that have been mentors, teachers that have recognized strengths and skills in us that we may not have necessarily seen ourselves, and then being able to direct you to now. Of course, you've had 20 years in that industry. If you were to look back at some of the key lessons around leadership, law and litigation, what would be some of the more, and it may be some specific projects that you've worked on that has allowed you to develop the leadership skills or who you are as you approach work? Are there any insights into that we can kind of take from you as we're looking at how can we be better leaders where we're serving and where we're providing our, leadership and our guidance and support?
Mm. So what I noticed over the years, because obviously you start out in a profession and you're junior, and you're very much learning. And so what I noticed was that people had such different leadership styles and different management styles. And I do think there's a big difference between a manager and a leader. I really do feel, and I have experienced, that a true leader will inspire you to do your best, will make you feel part of a team and part of something bigger than you are, and that your contribution is valuable. And so what I did really as my career was progressing was I took on board the parts of leadership that I had found really helped me. And I know that people have different styles, different personalities. So one leadership style might not work for everybody. But I took bits from different people and put them together in a way that suited me so that my leadership style is authentic, and I think it really comes, Anne-Marie, from the point of view of I care about people, whether that's people in my team or the people who are my clients. I really am emotional in the sense of forming connections and wanting the best for people and wanting to see them succeed. And that's really what drives me in terms of my leadership style. I love to see, particularly with juniors, that progression as they go through and they've never done something before. For example, recently I had a junior lawyer who'd never drafted an affidavit. And so I pointed him to a previous affidavit that had been drafted for the matter, and let him get on and have a go. And he would come to me and ask me questions, and I would go back to him. But my style is very much, I will try to give the person as much responsibility as possible, as much autonomy as possible, so that they can then explore the limits of what they're comfortable with. But I'm always there as a safety net. So the minute they've got questions, whether it's by email, telephone, in person, obviously, with COVID, it's a bit different nowadays. But I will always come back to them, where I'm suggesting something different to what they're thinking. I'll explain why. I'll explain where it fits into the big picture. I'll make sure that people are copied on correspondence on a matter. So I'm not just drip feeding work to them where they don't really see the big picture. I'm explaining where their contribution fits in so that they can feel valued and part of what we're doing. Because at the end of the day, Anne-Marie, we are a team, and it's really important that we work together collaboratively so that we get the best result for our clients. And so that's really where I'm coming from.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to that which I love, and I think can be really brought across any industry as we are growing, nurturing, supporting, leading our team. What I love about that is it sounds very empowering, doesn't it? It's not just telling someone what to do, not giving them the big picture. And as you said, these were some of the things that stood out as a young and upcoming lawyer from some of the standout leaders, and it's wonderful to see that you're doing the same now with up and coming lawyers. When it comes to law, the industry in general, and you're probably far more versed in this than what I am, but from what I hear is it still seems to be, like many other industries, male dominated, more men within the industry than, say, women. Is that still the case today? And are there some positive changes happening? What are you seeing, Muriel?
So at that entry level, in terms of graduates coming into law firms or into companies, it's actually the other way around. So you get about 60% of new entrants who are female. But as they progress up through the ranks, you're not then seeing that at the more senior lawyer level, and definitely not at the partner level. And I think things are changing. It's slow change, definitely. And I think really it comes down to, as a female, you finding a firm or a company that has the same values and the same approach as you do. And that's different for everybody. So each female will have their own drivers as to what particularly they want to achieve in life. And obviously for women, because they do need to take time off to have a child or children, that can then impact on their career progression depending on the particular firm. But Anne-Marie, the way that I have always approached it, and I think it is a bit of a novel approach, is when I was junior, I didn't notice whether partners were female or male. I noticed them as people, as, you know, were they a good person? Were they a decent person? Was I learning from them? Did I like their style? I didn't think in terms of, well, there's not many female partners. I didn't even think at all in terms of in terms like that. And it was actually friends who would say to me when I was junior, well, but look, there's hardly any female partners in this firm. Do you think that's, how can we aspire to be partners when there aren't the females to look up to? And yes. I know that there is a real focus on you have to see it to be it. But I disagree. I think the only way to really affect change is for you to think, this is what I want to do. It doesn't matter whether I'm male or female, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to give it my best. I'm going to speak to people, whether male or female, find out how they did it, how they achieved what I want to achieve, and see if you can get help along the way from people, whether they are male or female. And I do think nowadays there is that much more focus on you have to see it to be it. And I do in a sense feel that is a bit of a shame, because I feel that maybe women limit themselves because of that. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination suggesting that there aren't difficulties that as women we do face in any profession, I think, particularly the more male-dominated professions. But some of my best friends are male. Some of the best partners I know and get on with are male. And so again, it's more, for me, it's more down to personality rather than being male or female. And I do genuinely believe that you just need to have supportive people around you, and you can achieve what you want to achieve. You know, it's possible. Don't limit yourself. Don't think, I haven't seen somebody else do it, because no entrepreneur has seen somebody else do it.
Yeah, so true. I love everything that you've said about that, and I could not agree more. You know, recently we've just had the International Women's Day, and of course the hashtag was there, breaking the bias. And as you said, there are some industries, organisations, so forth, that have some work to do. So that's good. However, we need to do a self-evaluation, don't we? Is there a bias that I'm carrying around? Do I look through the lens of there are about more men here, rather than saying, look, there's lots of opportunities. You're here, so, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for you. That's so true. The networking, the people you connect with, the mentors that you learn from, let it be the skill, their talent, their approach, all of the things that stand out in the right positive way that can continue to shape and influence who you are, what projects you put yourself forward with and for, and who you continue to network with. So then, speaking then specifically, say, Muriel, for the things that you've learned more so to those senior females in law, you've got some wonderful insights that you have said that you can share around how not to just survive in the industry, but how to thrive. Some of them you may have already shared, but let's recap, or there may be some other insights that you would love to share in this area as well.
Yes, definitely, Anne-Marie, because I think there's also a number of women who would say that they support women and they will help women. But actually, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I think sometimes it's a bit lip service. Whereas when I say it, it's what I genuinely believe. You know, some of the organisations that I belong to, such as the Mentor Walks mentoring scheme, which was set up by Bobby Marlab, you know, senior women about town, and it's across several states, but senior women give up some time to go for a walk. Here in Perth, it's along the foreshore on the city side, and you're matched with juniors in all different industries. And they submit questions in advance, and then you just talk as you walk. And that's the sort of thing that I think is so important at all levels, because even being senior, it doesn't mean that you can't learn from people who are more junior or who are in different industries, because everybody has a different life experience and therefore different life lessons that they can teach you. And I love those walks, because I would say I learn as much from the mentees who I'm matched with as they learn from me.
Yes.
And so in terms of thriving, I think work is very important, and particularly in law, you know, it can be very long hours. So it's really important that you have good people around you. And I think be courageous. If it isn't working where you are, then actually take the time to think about what it is that's missing to actually make you thrive and make you feel like the best person, the person you want to be. On those days where you wake up, you've had a great night's sleep, you feel like you could conquer the world, you know, are you in an environment that makes you feel like that? And if you aren't, is it a temporary blip, or is it actually about the environment and the people that you're spending time with? Because in any profession, you probably spend more time or equal time with the people you work with as with your people at home.
Yes.
And so having good relationships and supportive relationships is really so key to making sure that you do thrive. And that courageous step of actually questioning, is this where I want to be? I think sometimes, you know, we start something and it feels amazing, you know, the honeymoon period, and then you settle down into the more day-to-day. And sometimes that's fine, and you do have ups and downs, obviously, but just always be checking in with yourself. Is this still the right environment? Because people come and go from organisations, so things do change. And so an environment that you were thriving in could, within even a few months or a year, have changed significantly. And then also think about the people that you're working with who might be outside your organisation. So particularly for lawyers, are the types of clients that you have, are they clients that you get on with? Are they in industries that you're interested in? Are they in businesses where you actually are passionate about knowing what their business is and how it operates so that you can better help them? I think those are all important questions to answer to really assess whether you are in the right place and whether it is time to look for somewhere where you might be happier going forward.
Yeah, all of those are such great insights. And if I go back to one of the things that you said earlier on, which I think is so important, not just for the law industry, but for all industries, and that was where you said supporting others. I think, there is enough challenges for men and women in the workplace and in life in general, if you will, that being that supportive person is so important, isn't it? To mentor. What I wanted to share a little bit, or ask you to share a little bit more about, is as you continue to develop your career and then get to that senior role, the level of support, or maybe, as you said, the more seniority level in a law firm, often there aren't those say partners and so forth that are other women. And sometimes, even though we really value and we respect our male colleagues, it is just something so special to be able to talk to someone who is at the similar level to us of what's going on in our industry. So what have you done, Muriel, or what advice can you give for senior females in the law whose network may be smaller and who would love to have support and just, another shoulder or another someone to talk to just through some of the day-to-day things that may come up in that industry? There's some things that you have done that were notable and was really supportive for you along the journey?
Well, what I did, Anne-Marie, because obviously I'm not from Australia originally, and so because I have worked, so I'm actually from a town in the north, or a city, I should say, in the north of England.
Yes.
And I've moved several times, therefore, during my life, because I moved to London to do my training at Baker Mackenzie. Then I moved to Sydney and I worked at Allen's. Then I moved to the Caribbean and I worked at an offshore firm, and then I moved to Perth. So I've got used to building relationships in the environment that I have joined. It's one of those things where, I do have strong friends who are back in the UK where I'm from, but they are more friends from university days as opposed to school. I think in the UK, because people tend to go to school, definitely in when I was going to university, it was really a natural break because people go to all different cities for university. And so it turns out that the relationships you build at university tend to be more the ones that you then carry through your life, because you're studying together, you're studying the same subject. And particularly with law, you go on generally into the profession. So I do have those strong networks that I can tap into back in the UK. But each place that I've gone, I've always looked for people who are like-minded in terms of that support, where I can support them and they can support me. And it's just, I guess it's an extension of friendship for me. So developing those friendships where you can support each other, you can be a sounding board for each other. And, on those days where things are going well, you can celebrate success together over a glass of champagne. Where things are not going so well, you can commiserate together over a glass of champagne. And what I have found is, I found both male and female partners who are the kinds of friends that you can have on speed dial, who you can just ring up. Some are in the law, some are actually not in the law. And I've even got clients who I've become such good friends with that they're actually friends who I would confide in and who I would use as a sounding board as well, and who I support in the difficulties that they face in day-to-day life as well. So for me personally, I am that kind of personable type of person. I was the one as a junior lawyer when we were faced with a room full of lever arch files that there were 2 copy sets and we had to check each one. I think there were 30 odd individual sets to check. It was me who got straight on the phone, ringing around all of the junior lawyers, can you just give us an hour of your time, even just half an hour of your time? Just come, read through, page turn on the file. And we did it. We did it in a couple of hours maximum, because I had already developed those relationships that I could call on people for a favour, and they knew that I wouldn't abuse their kindness of giving up half an hour of their time. And so that's where it really comes from. I care about people, and I think when you care about people and helping them to be their best, then they want to do the same for you and support you.
Yeah, so great what you've just shared, and just again reinforcing the value of the relationships that you build. And it just really rings through from, and I'm sure you were as a young age as well, very intentional in the relationships, because you knew that reciprocating, you being of support, you being of service, you being there if they needed, was going to be there for you as well. And what I love about that is, like, when you want to make a difference, or you need to be a difference, don't you? So extend that hand first, extend that support, and people will see whether you're genuine or maybe not so genuine. And it's just testament to that. That really is how life, business, relationships work so well when you take that approach. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. So now, of course, we've heard and being able to gain a sense of just who you are, even when you're dealing with business, with your clients, and in your day-to-day as a leader as well. You've got that wonderful approach, and really thinking about others as well, not just yourself, which I just love. And I know that you wanted to share just some tips for businesses on how to avoid litigation. And I know that you're going to repeat this, but of course, this is just general advice and things. And if you do need someone, I have got someone, a great connection you can reach out to. You do need that legal support. But Muriel, what insights would you like to share here?
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I think the key thing is really making sure that the contract that you have agreed is accurately reflected in a written document. It's easy for people to get caught up in the moment, being excited by the deal, and not properly read through. And that's where you can really come unstuck in the future, because you think that something has been agreed because you've agreed it verbally, but then you've entered into a written contract to confirm the terms. And if something goes wrong in the future, you suddenly look at the contract and think, oh, hang on a minute. It doesn't quite say what I thought had been agreed. So it's really crucial in those early stages to make sure that you're properly reviewing your contract. If you're excited about a deal because you're purchasing something to on sale, again, if it's not your contract, then do make sure that you understand the terms, that there's not something really strange in there, which means that the other side can change the way that it performs or what it is supplying under the contract, or that it can change the price if there's no parameters around that. And then I think in terms of contracting generally and relationships, now obviously it depends on the industry that you're in, but each company does have a kind of personality, and I think that comes from either the board or the CEO in terms of how the organization is run, or a mixture of the two. And so do think about the reputation of the company or the people that you're contracting with, or thinking about doing a deal with, and just assess if it is the right fit. Again, it's not that everybody has to be the same, but it's just thinking in advance about those potential risks, and whether the reward at the end of it is going to be worth it. I know several people who have moved roles because the organization they joined had a very different culture and a very different ethos to their approach to life. And it's the same when you're doing business. Entities are doing business with each other. It's just something to be aware of. I think the best deals And the most successful deals tend to happen when people know each other. They do business together regularly, and they go out. They spend time outside of work together. It doesn't have to be that way, but I just think the stronger the relationship you have, the more likely, if there are niggles along the way, that you'll be able to resolve it amicably, and it won't become, a difficult situation, and people won't become entrenched in their views, because they know you as a person and they know that you're a decent person, and so therefore whatever has arisen can probably be resolved if you just talk about it in a reasonable way and have some kind of negotiation.
Yeah, so true. And, as you're sharing that, and valuable, you have also said as well, and I know that, before any relationship and before you even sign on a dotted line, or how many business deals are done by word of mouth or a handshake, which is fine, but really it's often the things that have not been spoken about, the things that are not clearly documented, the fine line between the obligations for the two parties. When that is murky, that often can become the undoing, which could have quite easily been navigated through were it in black and white and agreed upon before it ever got to a stage where things may be difficult to handle, if you will, or to sort out. Because often then, by the time we do get to see someone such as yourself, and I will get you to explain for those who may not know what the difference between, well, obviously we know what litigation is, but arbitration, mediation and negotiation, a little bit of time on that. But, by the time someone does come, or two parties do come, all of the emotions and all of those other things which really could have been dealt with, and it's like a snowball effect, isn't it? By that time, people are just kind of, the thing has grown far out of proportion than it could have been handled quite easily. So we want to avoid that. So share a little bit about what would be a couple of sentences around the differences between litigation, arbitration, mediation, and negotiation.
Yes. So negotiation, that's the quickest and simplest way to resolve something. It's generally the parties just meeting together and trying to discuss how they can resolve the issue that has arisen. Mediation is where you have a third party who will meet together with the two sides, and they'll talk together. They'll each present the issues that they have, and then the mediator will generally put each of them in separate rooms and act as a go-between in terms of communicating between the two parties, and trying to bring them to a resolution. And people who do that role of mediator, they're trained in it. So they have more advanced mechanisms for trying to bring the parties to an agreement than the parties themselves might have, because generally, if you're in that kind of business role, even a CEO role, you almost certainly haven't done training as a mediator. Some have, it's true, but the majority won't have done. And so it just gives you that extra step in terms of a bit more support in trying to resolve the issue, because you haven't been able to resolve it between yourselves. And then arbitration and litigation, they're more where you haven't been able to resolve things. Although, having said that, often arbitration or mediation will be commenced, and there'll be a mediation at some point during the process, and often more than one mediation, where the parties do say, well, actually, do we want to progress this to trial or to an arbitration hearing, or do we want to get it resolved now? So they do overlap. With litigation, you're in court and your matter will be decided by a judge. And there's a procedural process to follow, which is set down by the particular court's rules. That's an open process. Anybody can come to court and sit and watch your case. And the judgment that the judge hands down will be publicly available as well.
Right.
Arbitration is more confidential. So it's a separate process where generally the parties will appoint either an arbitrator each, who will then appoint a third arbitrator to chair the tribunal. or there'll be a mechanism in the contract for a third party to appoint an arbitrator.
Yes.
And the benefits of arbitration, it does follow a similar procedure to litigation, but there's more flexibility around how the parties do things and the order of things as well. The big benefit is that it's confidential. So even if you do go all the way to a hearing, and the arbitrator or arbitrators, whichever comprise the tribunal, whatever decision they make, it's a confidential decision that isn't published and isn't publicly available. Nobody outside of the parties and the arbitrators and any expert witnesses that they have can hear what's going on. And anybody outside of the parties will only be there for their particular part of giving evidence if they're an expert. So that's why parties will sometimes want to go the arbitration route, because they effectively don't want their dirty linen aired in public. And that's the benefit that you have with arbitration.
Yeah, fantastic. And thank you for so clearly explaining that to us. And of course, one of the areas that you do is to advise on how best to resolve the dispute. And I would imagine that every case or every situation will have its merits as to which one would be best for them, to ultimately come to a resolution as best as possible that both parties can go away feeling, yep, heard, and that it has come to a good resolution and close. Not so much sometimes, but you know, again, had the contract, I'm sure you look at contracts and think, well, had that been worded slightly different, we could have had quite a different approach to that. So again, get it right in the first place for the contract stage, which I know is what you do as well. You help clients at the contract drafting stages so that they never ever need to get to that future dispute stage. And if they do, it's something that can quite easily be discussed, negotiated, and people on their way. Muriel, thank you so much for coming on the show. How can people find out more about you? What is the best way to connect? Websites, all of that. How best?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so obviously people can connect with me by inviting me to connect. They can send me a message. The firm that I'm at, Mills Oakley, they have a website and my contact details are on the website. So those are probably the two best methods of reaching out. I definitely spend quite a lot of time on LinkedIn, so I do respond to messages when I receive them. So yes, feel free to reach out and have a chat, connect, you know, go for coffee, whatever it is. I'm always happy to meet new people and get to know them and see how we can help each other.
Fantastic. And of course, you are a member of Business Women Australia, and that is a great way to connect as well. And if you are in the same state and maybe in the same town as Muriel, you can go and attend a Business Women Australia networking function. So if you've listened to the show and you'd like to find out a little bit more about, of course, Muriel, go to her LinkedIn profile. The details will be on the show notes. And of course, if you'd like to find out more about Business Women Australia and how you can become part of this dynamic collective of leaders and learners so that you can gain knowledge and skills that enable you to succeed in business because you are networking and developing relationships with people such as Muriel, who are part of our network. All you need to do is go to businesswomenaustralia.com.au. Thanks once again for coming on the show, Muriel.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. It's been fabulous.